Okay, so let's see how absurd it is. If Donald Trump doesn't say the election was stolen, does January 6th happen? Would you have been there with Dr. Simone Gold? Be honest. Answer the question honestly.
I'm not even quite sure what your question is, but
I'll repeat it again.
On January 6th to exercise the First Amendment.
No, I'm not asking you about the First Amendment. Please listen to my question.
That's why I was there on January 6th, and so was every other J6 patriot.
John, I understand you had the First Amendment right to be there. You didn't have a First Amendment right to go into the Capitol, but that's another story. If Donald Trump didn't say that the election was stolen months leading up to January 6th, does January 6th happen? Yes or no?
One has nothing to do with the other.
What are you talking about? Everybody was there because Donald Trump said the election was stolen. What are you talking about?
Everyone was there because they believed the election was stolen.
Right, which it wasn't. But that's
your opinion, and I don't find your opinion credible there.
Well, that's fine. You could say it's not credible. You could say the judges aren't credible. You could say our justice system isn't credible. You could say the FBI isn't credible. You know who I don't think is credible? People that listen to every word that Donald Trump says that believe him. I don't think those people are credible. The people that say the editing was doctored and on the videos and blame the government and blame the government.
Do you want to see an example of that, Brian? Do you want to see how the government edited video and lied about me at trial, where I was supposedly given my day in court, which is total mockery? Yeah, they edited footage to show select views of frozen moments and then represent me as a criminal and a violent person when I was either not the person in the video or I was doing the exact opposite thing that they told the jury I was doing.
Were you charged for any violent crimes?
I was charged with 1512 C2, U.S. 20-year felony, and I was charged with 4 misdemeanors, including
Were you charged with any and convicted on any violent crimes that day? Because that's really what matters here. You weren't, right, John? You were not charged with any violence.
I'm not going to allow you to make statements as if they're fact when they're
not.
Well,
tell me then. Were you charged and convicted with any violence?
That's what's important here. I disagree. I don't think that's what's important here. I think what's important.
We're talking about violent crimes, and you're saying that you were mistreated and they showed you doing things you weren't doing. My question to you is, were you charged or convicted with any violent crimes that day? It's a very simple question.
I told you exactly what I was charged with.
Right. And none of those were violent crimes. So why do you keep playing the victim? I don't understand.
I'm not playing the victim. And then again, that's your mischaracterization, which I don't appreciate, Brian.
Well, I don't appreciate the fact that you say I have leftist views and I get all my information from CNN when the fact of the matter is
you get all your information from CNN. I said you're clearly using CNN talking.
In this interview, you're saying all the judges are not credible, right? That threw out no merit with the alleged election being stolen. So you're poo-pooing on our entire justice system. You're poo-pooing on every judge.
Our justice system has a lot of very serious problems.
If it doesn't fit your narrative, I can understand why you say that. Like, for example, Donald Trump is a 34-count felon, but he's not going to jail. I'm sure you're totally okay with that, right?
I'm okay with the fact that the country understands those felonies were fraudulent and that entire case was nonsense, as were all of the cases.
What about Hunter Biden? Were those charges fraudulent?
No, they were not.
Right. So if it's a Democrat, everything's great. But if it's a Republican, it must be fraudulent. Is that your opinion?
Of course not.
Oh, it's not. Okay. Well, give me a Republican that you think belongs in jail right now.
Adam Kinzinger.
Of course, it's the one Democrat that you bring up that voted to impeach Donald Trump. What a shocker.
She was a Republican.
Of course.
Do you know, Brian, that Liz Cheney actually violated the exact 20-year felony that they used illicitly to put me in prison? I did nothing wrong. They put me in prison for almost 3 years for 1512, which is, again, the correct title.
So I don't want to mischaracterize you.
Victim or informant, which is exactly what Liz Cheney did.
I don't want to mischaracterize your opinion. So your opinion, John, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Liz Cheney belongs in jail, but those who physically assaulted police officers should have never been convicted. Is that your opinion, John?
My statement to you is that Liz Cheney violated 1512. It's explicit. That is a 20-year felony for which she and her colleagues happily put me in prison for almost 3 years, which is disgusting because I not only didn't break that law, I broke no law.
So Liz Cheney should be in jail. Adam Kinzinger should be in jail. I notice you pick a few of the Republicans.
And the folks that you continue to grandstand about assaulting police officers.
I'm not grandstanding. I don't care if it's a Black Lives Matter protest or January 6th.
I obviously don't advocate for violence ever for anyone.
Sounds like you're making
excuses. I certainly don't
for
advocate for violence against law enforcement who we
You haven't put
staunchly
any
support and defend.
John, you haven't put any responsibility on any of the insurrectionists. I know you don't want me to call them
Then
insurrectionists.
why do you use that term, Brian? It's really detracting from your overall
if you want,
credibility when I have
okay,
explicitly defined for you why it's false and defamatory.
okay, well, you can listen. The guy who says the 2020 election was stolen, the guy who says it's an inside job, the
More
guy
than
who
half
believes
the country says
the
that.
guy who, well, then more than half the country are a bunch of idiots. Okay, and I mean that, by the way. If you think right
okay,
now,
Brian, that you're welcome to that opinion. I don't think it
Yeah.
serves you well.
no,
But
I think it serves me
regardless,
very well. I think it serves me very well because I'm on the side of history, and I don't have the blinders on. I don't believe a word that a 34 count felon liable sexual abuser
You're definitely
says,
on the
okay?
wrong side of history, my friend.
Right, I'm on the wrong side of history. So you want to defend the January 6ers, some of whom beat police officers, and you want to verbally attack those officers that risked their lives that day trying to defend those politicians, Republicans and Democrats. And you're saying that it's bad for me.
Actually, Brian, I stood on the steps of the Capitol shortly after I exited the building and applauded those police officers as
it
they
really
were
sounds like you're really applauding those police
thanking
officers
them for their service.
You're
No, I'm just
blaming
recognizing
them.
reality, Brian.
You're blaming
Reality is very
them.
clear that
Reality?
some of the police officers violated use of force protocols and acted improperly. And they
Did
have
anybody else
a
act
higher level
improperly
of
that day?
responsibility than unarmed protesters.
Did anybody else act improperly that day? Did any MAGA supporters act improperly that day?
Yes, I believe they did. I didn't say that
well, thank you.
MAGA supporters acted improperly.
Did
That
any of
certainly
those
wouldn't be
MAGA
an
supporters that
inaccurate
beat
statement.
police
I did not
officers?
say that.
Okay, any of those officers?
I said, and I'll continue to say it because it's true, that the government holds higher responsibility, that the government was clearly implicated in an entrapment event, that the government clearly executed improper use of force. They violated use of force protocols. They attacked an unarmed crowd, provoked violence, and caused a violent conflict that should never have happened and would not have happened without their improper actions. And that should really, Brian, what I would love for you to consider is that should bother you much more than the things that you seem to be so worked up about. Again,
I'm worked up about
all of us condemn violence, and we don't want to see police officers attacked or abused. We agree on that, so that we don't need to belabor that point. That isn't the point here. The point here is that so much about January 6th is wildly untrue and inaccurate and has been very obviously weaponized against a certain class of citizens who you seem to consider to be stupid and uninformed.
Yeah, I do.
That's your opinion. And of course, I don't think it's an accurate one.
You're right. The people that stormed the Capitol that were chanting Mike Pence are very intelligent people, John. You're right. They're probably very educated and very well informed. The people that say that the election was stolen, the people that showed up,
I'm one of those people, Ryan. So
very intelligent.
You can castigate me as ignorant or uneducated or uninformed all you like.
Well, Simone Gold is. Listen, you were the bodyguard. You were the bodyguard of Simone Gold, right?
I'm very confident that the 2020 election was not executed in a lawful manner. Plenty of legitimate, clear evidences for that.
It's
obvious that was not
unproven in a court of law
properly or given due process, as was about to happen on January 6th.
Why were you the only one not to take a plea deal?
And Congressman Paul Gosar had already properly raised the votes to pause the certification to review these concerns.
John, why were you the only one not to take a plea deal?
I was not the only one to not take a plea deal, but I'm in a very, very small minority that refused the plea deal. Because the reason I refused the plea deal is because it was a lie. And not only was it a lie, it was a lie because I'm not guilty, I'm innocent. But it was also a lie which was part of a greater lie and a greater malicious act on the government to create a false narrative. So the plea deal includes a summary of facts or a statement of fact that establishes the context of what happened. And if you sign the plea deal, you are affirming that what the government described about the event is true. And much in that plea deal was false, specifically related to people's intent. It described them as having the intent beforehand to commit crimes and to overthrow the government, which largely is completely absurd. You could find a crackpot here or there that will say anything. Okay, that's not relevant to me. What's relevant is the legitimate mindset and intent of most people. And
I've interviewed several people, though, John. I've interviewed several people that have accepted their fate. They went to jail. They got out of jail. They've told me, including Pam Hemphill, who's done this show multiple times.
Yeah, I'm aware of her. That's not a credible person. So
That's not so. Anything that doesn't fit your narrative about Donald Trump winning the 2020 election, the election was stolen. They're not credible. Judges aren't credible. People with probably 100 times more experience in law than you, they're all not credible. And if they disagree with you, they're not credible. Or as you said about me, I must have a lefty view. Unless they agree with you, then all of a sudden they're credible. Donald Trump, you probably think is credible, right? Donald Trump is a credible guy, right, John?